The clink of my father's wine glass against the table was the only sound in the room for a moment. He was laughing, toasting my sister as if she were an inside joke I was too simple to understand. "Your sister earned everything on her own," he declared, his voice booming with a pride that had always had a specific address, and it was never mine. Eyes on the prize, unlike some. The air at the table thickened. My mother's hand froze, hovering over the serving dish of rosemary chicken. I felt it then, not anger, but a quiet, final shattering. A sharp, crystalline truth settling deep in my chest. I leaned back in my chair, the wood groaning a familiar protest. My voice was soft, but it cut through the performative silence like a blade. "Then I'll stop sending you the money." The color drained from my father's face, leaving his features strangely blurred. "What money?" And in that silence, that vast, echoing silence, the house itself seemed to speak. The peeling paint, the humming fridge, the weary floorboards, they all whispered the truth they had been hiding for years. That was the night I stopped being the quiet one. My name is Rachel. For 32 years, I was the architect of peace, the one who drafted blueprints for harmony and paid for them with my own voice. My family was a beautiful facade, Sunday dinners, framed smiles, matching Christmas sweaters. But foundations crack. When the recession hit, their mortgage began to slip. I had just started my own life, my career in architecture still finding its footing, but I couldn't watch them drown. I told my mother I would help. $5,000 a month. A silent tide for family peace. My father, stubbornly analog, refused online banking. So, I wired the money to my sister, Helena. The golden child. "I'll handle it," she'd said. "It's easier this way." And I, the practical sister, believed her. Believing Helena was the family religion. For months, the ritual continued. I sent the money. I received a single text, handled. I clung to the warmth when my father mentioned the mortgage was under control, thinking I was the hidden pillar holding them up. I was wrong. I was the one being dismantled. That night at dinner, the illusion finally curdled. "Your sister really figured it out," Dad said, his eyes gliding over me. "All on her own, too. No handouts." The words hung in the air, toxic and heavy. I could have swallowed them, as I always had. But the well of my silence had run dry. "Then I'll stop sending you the money." The confusion on my father's face was genuine. It was the most painful part. "You've been what?" "The $5,000 I've been wiring to Helena every month. For you. Since last April." The world pivoted. My mother's eyes, wide and wounded, turned to Helena. "Helena?" My sister's composure, her most prized possession, cracked. "She's exaggerating. There were delays." "Every month," I repeated, my voice steady as stone. "The first of each one. I have the confirmations." The silence that followed was a living thing, stripping away the wallpaper of our lives to reveal the rot beneath. Helena's excuses, investments, expenses, echoed in the hollowed-out room. "You wouldn't get it, Rachel," she snapped, her eyes flashing with a desperate venom. "You never believe in anything unless it's safe." "Believing in family," I said, standing slowly, "shouldn't feel this dangerous." The house stayed awake that night, breathing with the ragged sounds of my mother's tears and my father's pacing. In my old room, the plastic stars on my ceiling watched as I traced the digital trail of my own naivete. $60,000. Gone. The next morning, Helena was gone, too. A single, flippant note on her dresser, "Don't overreact. I'll fix it." But I was done waiting for others to fix what they had broken. What followed wasn't a quest for revenge. It was an excavation of truth. I became a forensic architect of our collapse. With Evan, my steady anchor, by my side, I followed the money. The bank manager, with a pitying frown, gave me a name, Mason Vale. The name was a key, unlocking a door to a deeper, darker deception. He arrived on our porch 3 days later, all practiced smiles and empty charm. "I'm Mason. Helena's Mason." He spread glossy, meaningless printouts on our table, talking about scalable apps and beta launches, a castle built on the sand of my family's security. The sound of Helena's car in the driveway was the sound of the final act beginning. She walked in, a beautiful ghost of her former self, her perfect facade crumbling when she saw Mason. "You said we'd double it in a year," she whispered to him. His shrug was a masterpiece of indifference. "Plans change." My father's fist hit the table. "You stole from your own family. It's not stealing if it's an investment." Helena cried, still clinging to the wreckage of his lies. I looked at Mason, this architect of ruin. "So, what's your real job?" "I'm an entrepreneur." "Funny," I said, my voice cold and clear. "Your last business owes back child support." I showed Helena the messages, the proof of the other women, the other lives he had hollowed out. The betrayal in her eyes was a reflection of my own. As the sirens wailed outside, my call, my final blueprint for justice, Mason turned to me. "You think you've won?" I met his gaze, no longer the quiet sister, but the foundation upon which a new family would be built. "I hope she finds someone like me, too." In the clean, quiet aftermath, we were broken, but we were real. The trial was not a victory lap, but a painful, necessary surgery. Helena, trembling but resolute, gave her testimony. She faced the man who had weaponized her ambition and shattered her with his emptiness. When the verdict was read, there was no celebration. Only a collective exhale. A chance to begin again. Weeks later, Helena and I stood in the backyard, a small box between us filled with the artifacts of his deception. She struck the match. We watched the flames curl and blacken his promises, turning them into smoke that dissipated into the clean, winter air. "He took so much from me," she whispered, her voice raw with a new honesty. I looked at her, my sister, finally returned from the land of lies. "Then make sure he never gets another inch." By spring, the light in the house was different. Mom was in her garden. Dad was fixing the porch. Helena came home each day with honest dirt under her nails. The silence was no longer a hiding place, but a sanctuary. The day I left for Seattle, she pressed an envelope into my hand. Inside was a photograph of us as children, cheeks smeared with cotton candy, laughing without a single concept of future betrayal. On the back, she had written, "Thank you for not giving up on me, even when I deserved it." As I drove away, I glanced in the rearview mirror. The house looked smaller, but it stood straighter. It was no longer a museum of perfection, but a home, finally built on the unshakable foundation of truth.